we are coming to you live from our very own homes and headquarters. I am Kat. With me is my handsome buckets and my bro Leon.
Good
Tonight,
evening.
we are watching as it all unfolds. Australia has officially said no. And we are going to react or answer questions to the fallout of what this all means or what could potentially happen. First question is, what companies have been potentially bribed to support the yes agenda?
Okay,
Well,
well, that's Coles, Woolworths, Qantas, Shaquille O'Neal.
is he a
You know,
big business? Well, he's a big fella, I know that.
big fella. Is his own business right now. Lots of foreign agencies that aren't even Australian. The AFL, the NRL. The
Is
list goes
Lapbox
on.
getting anything with it?
Yeah, I believe so.
BHP apparently.
Yes, BHP, that's another one. Basically, all the big time 1% companies that aren't struggling in poverty got a big pay cut out of this.
The only company who didn't get anything out of it is Aldi, and they're not even an Australian company.
That's because they're German, right?
The next question is, why did more people vote no?
Well, the simple thing, I think the simple thing is the Yes campaign could not break through their reasoning why we should vote yes. That's one of the main reasons why it has been rejected so overwhelmingly at this referendum. We knew it was going to be tough, but my thing is why has it failed so miserably when you have two people like Lydia Thorpe and also Jacinta Price who are right and left agreeing on the one subject. You've got double the power there. You don't have a chance of getting up on that. Once both sides of a faction are agreeing, you don't come back from that.
Not to mention the great Anthony Mundine on top of that. I mean, he was
Anthony Mundine. Are you saying Anthony Mundine or Warren?
sorry, Warren Mundine.
And Anthony Mundine.
Anthony,
And his nephew.
he did agree, but it's Warren Mundine that really had the power card saying, hey, look, Australia's a beautiful country and I'm Aboriginal, but I'm telling you, this is a really bad mistake and it's very, very risky and it's not making any sense right now. And we've never had anything like it before. But I think a lot of some of the biggest reasons was that it was too vague. So are
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
were the members to be chosen or were they to be elected? That's a big thing, right? Were they who were the 24 members meant to be representing? Because a lot of Aboriginal tribes felt that they didn't want to be represented by people that weren't in their tribes. So they saw it as a second colonization or a corporate takeover from a bunch of city tribes that weren't even in their tribe. That's why they were against Makarrata and treaty.
In the indigenous language, isn't Makarrata treaty the word treaty in an indigenous language?
And they didn't like the idea of the quote unquote treaty.
And they couldn't bring themselves to say treaty when they could say Makarrata while try to dance around the word treaty. That didn't help either.
You know what else didn't help? When basically Albanese kept saying, hey, it's one page, and then
It was more than that.
It's 27 pages, and then we found out no, it's not actually 27 pages. It's actually 101 pages.
Well, that hurt him big time, especially when Neil Mitchell brought that up with Anthony Albanese on was it in Victoria? And have you read the pages? And then Anthony Albanese said, "No, I haven't read it. Why would I?" That was a killer point. That when he said that he didn't. Why would I? You're the Prime Minister. You need to be on top of these things. You need to be reading everything here. Once that came about, it went even more south. It went south. It went south even worse.
There's a man in the job that's spending $35 million to spread the Yes campaign. That's expecting everyone to say yes, doesn't even read the
The
Uluru.
pages. He needs the page. The Uluru Statement.
And he said he supported the Uluru Statement to the
In
heart,
full.
and he obviously didn't read it
In
in full. That is
Exactly.
a serious problem. That is a serious problem.
What I want to say about this answer is the reason why a lot of us and a lot of Australians voted no wasn't to do anything with Labor, Greens, or Liberal or neutral. It was because we didn't want to be divided. We didn't want to be hated on. We were called racist. We were called names that should have never been uttered. It broke my heart, and I think a lot of us felt alone. A lot of us felt angry and divided, and the racial slurs. A lot of us, want count ourselves as Australian. And I was actually saying something to Buckets today. I was looking back. I came to this country in September of '97. Then 2002, I became an Australian with my family. So it's been 21 years and 7 months since I've been an Australian citizen of this country from New Zealand. And I'm very proud of it. And listening to the Seekers really made me tear up because it now has more of a significance meaning to me. Not that it never did. And I think Australians are angry at the way our Prime Minister has behaved. And I don't know why, his lawyers didn't, if they'd warned him, why didn't he listen to his lawyers? Why didn't he just stop dead in his tracks and think, hang on, I'm dividing the country. I'm making people hate each other. Families are torn apart. Friendships are broken. This was all about a shilling. This was all about money at the end of the day. And this is why a lot of people said, no, I'm going to say no because I don't want we're not going to be divided and we're not racist.
Or we don't understand.
And we're not hateful. We don't understand. So we're going to say no.
Yeah. And that was one of the biggest reasons why people voted no, because they just simply didn't understand. And those that did read it and said, no, I understand. And I said, okay.
I still think this is a bad idea.
It's still a bad idea because the thing is, if you have two sovereigns in the one country, that means we're divided.
Absolutely.
And the bigger question you have here is that Indigenous Australians might be the first people in Australia, and I can agree on that. And I know Kat can, and I know you can, and I know many other Australians can all agree that the Indigenous Australians got here first, right? That's why they call them Indigenous, right? But just because they got here first, where does that put the people that came here last? So the Greeks, Italians, Chinese, Armenians, Irish,
German, Spanish, etc.
Right, that came and built this country. So it's the people that built the Opera House, people that built the Harbour Bridge, people that brought trades with them. Where does that leave them? Are they going to be ostracized or disenfranchised because they're not Aboriginal anymore?
I'm worried that, even though the people have voted no, right, they're going to be there are going to be some angry Indigenous people who legitimately believe that this could help, and I hope that that's not the case, because I do have some Indigenous friends. I just hope I don't lose a friendship over this, because this was supposed to unite us. Instead, it has just divided us even further. And because right now, as we speak, we're actually recording this, by the way, before the Western Australian polls have closed. Everywhere has just been an absolute shellacking, by the way, in every state and territory, by the way, right now, as we speak. Andrew Clennell on Sky News interviewed Tony Abbott, and Tony Abbott said this was the referendum we didn't need to have, which spoke volume, because he was one of the people that originally pushed for, this what do you call it, closing the gap kind of deal, between the Australian Indigenous, bringing them closer together. He was one of those people back in 2015 that called for this, but not in this way.
can I say something, right? Multiculturalism in this country is a very beautiful thing, and it's a very productive thing, and it's a very economic thing. How many Americans have come to Australia to experience Australian Indigenous culture in Alice Springs, where Ayers Rock is in Uluru, or other parts of Australia, which we hold quite beautiful. How many times have they come here just to experience nature and things like that? How many times have they come to Sydney, Melbourne, Ballarat, where all the gold is? How many times have they come over here and just loved Australian beaches and Australian lifestyle? So, you know, to put this great big divide between that, and to have Australians hating Australians, was Albanese's biggest flaw. And to be honest, I voted for Albanese. I didn't think he would ever do anything this stupid, and it's caused nothing but hatred in our country, a hatred that we shouldn't have even had, because I believe that both Indigenous Australians and non-Indigenous Australians have contributed great things into this country to keep it both not only modern, but a beautiful country where people that come from Europe, that come from Asia, that come from Africa, and come from other places, literally just get out of their home because they think of their homes where they're originally from, and travel to Australia because they think we're the lucky country, and want to start up a life and integrate into our country, because whatever's happening in their country, they think they can live a much better life in Australia. And to have this basic great divide between that, when we're getting along so well with each other, is so sad. I expected this kind of stuff with apartheid and other terrible
organizations
and stuff like that. Even the Palestinian Israeli thing that was happening was awful, absolutely awful. But to kind of see something similar to that happen in Australia, I never thought I'd ever see that in my entire life, and I'm appalled that that even happened.
Here's the next question I want to throw to both of you, and I'll answer it myself as well. Was the biggest failure from the Albanese government accusing the Australian people, the Australian public like us, as, quote, racists, Leon?
Oh, definitely. That hurt something. That would have hurt there. That hurt Anthony Albanese's campaign, you know, by resulting in name calling of senators. Hell, we even had Ray Martin just a week ago calling the No campaigners what, dinosaurs and dickheads. You're not gonna do that, and you're not gonna get away with that. We just got behind ourselves even more, and so, you know, gave, all right, so this is what a dinosaur and a dickhead is, huh? What does that make you? It makes you obsolete. You're the ones that are, you know, having to resort to name calling and stuff like that just to try and get your way. Hell, we were even at one stage accused of following Trump style politics. Donald Trump has nothing to do with this campaign either. So that was another fatal flaw. It doesn't make sense to me.
The thing that came out of his mouth shocked me. You're right about something, Leon. You just pinpointed at something. I'm proud of you for that. And that is, we're in the Trumpian era. And I know you both gonna laugh at me saying this, but what angered me was his words of, I want to make Australia greater again.
Which sounds exactly like
a MAGA call out, a dog whistle, if you don't mind me saying so. Don't come at me. But
right,
those words is so wrong to say in this country, because we're not America. We have our own issues to deal with, right? And to have people on the yes side, from what I hear, don't come at me, but spitting on no voters, you know, calling names.
That hurt. That really, well, mind you, you mentioned the spitting incident, right? There was two things wrong with that. Obviously, this incident from the Yes campaigner, who was a professor, by the way, who should be busted back down to janitor work or whatever it is after that. Really, that did so much damage. What they were doing what these people were doing, I know I heard this the other day and it sticks in my head. They were self-sabotaging their own cause. When you started hearing them chant obscenities towards no campaigners, when you start hearing that,
Yeah.
you're self-sabotaging your own campaign. You ain't going to win by calling people names.
And what about the whole voting thing? The whole voting scandal was even controversial in itself, where if a no voter put in a cross there,
It wouldn't count.
or if you put yes or no, that wouldn't count, which really confused people, because I think we can all agree that, again, Indigenous Australians got here first.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we all want to basically support the voice. So if you put yes and then you put no, okay, then your vote just didn't count. So
One thing you mentioned about that just now, right? I'll bring this up because if you make a mistake like that, you could have gone to the people there that handed you a voting card. Asked them for a new one. You could have, if you had made that mistake, you could have gone to the person who handed you a sheet and asked for a new one so you can do that, so you can fill it out properly. But the thing that the AEC didn't help matters once when they started getting themselves tangled up in knots when they didn't need to be, like a vote for yes, you write YES, yes, or a tick, that qualifies as a yes vote. However, if you write no, that's a no vote. However, if you write a cross, that didn't count.
Yeah, and I thought that was completely biased, and it shouldn't matter if it's no or cross, because everyone understands what a cross is, and everyone
no.
So, so I did notice that. The other thing I also noted was the fact that the Yes campaign practically copied the AEC purple covers.
Color scheme, which you're not allowed to do, by the way.
They
were told off numerous times not to do that.
And we saw that this morning, and no one tried to stop them doing it, but they were told they weren't to have that because it was too close to the AEC colors.
Color scheme, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know what else I noticed? There were no boards saying vote no. There was nothing, or
it was
no
all
one.
yes boards.
Yeah.
Well, I have a feeling I know the reason why, because if there was a no thing, then the yes people who are so wanting this to go their way would have torn the shreds.
Yeah, so that was one thing.
Would have proved our point regarding the obscenities and stuff like that was thrown our way beforehand.
Here's what I want to throw out a random question before we move on to question 4. And here's what I want to ask, and humor me. Now that this has happened, there's a full investigation on Qantas and Jetstar, or Qantas. What's going to happen to those airline crew? What's going to happen to the company that stuck those stickers on the plane? And why did they accept the check from the Prime Minister's office? What's going to happen to them? Their livelihoods are now ruined because of this.
The thing is, they were really shifty on how they answered that question. They said, well, surely there would have been a minutes meeting to decide about having a decal of the yes vote on all the planes, because they were giving out free tickets to anyone that said, oh yes, we support the yes campaign.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. I think that was for Qantas tickets, right?
That's correct, and that's like that's basically bribing someone to vote yes.
Yeah.
But it's also alienating someone if they want to decide to vote no.
Yeah.
And they claim that they didn't have it in their minutes, or they didn't know where it was. But my argument to that is, well, that's a decision that they would have had to have made. Therefore, it would have been in their minutes. Therefore, someone would have given them a check to do it. And every time they asked, okay, well, where did this decision come from? And they just kept saying, oh, the board member before me. So they're trying to dodge that question so someone doesn't get the sack. But they effectively took a bribe for this. So I think what's going to happen afterwards is there's going to be the IPAC are actually going to have to be forced to get involved and work out why the Australian taxpayers had to pay $35 million.
Yeah.
And where did all this money go?
Exactly.
And what was it spent on? Okay. And who decided to make these decisions? So that's going to be something that's really going to cost
Create
the
havoc.
government.
Yeah.
You mentioned an ICAC investigation. I think an ICAC investigation should be made against the Prime Minister of Australia for one calling this thing and just in complete denial about what was really going to happen. How much money was spent on this Yes campaign? How much money did big businesses put into this Yes campaign? And for all that money, which has been quite bluntly pissed away, where right now there are other issues which we could be talking about right now, which mainly would be the cost of living crisis right now. As far as I understood, that the voice referendum, I think, was way down on the bottom of the list of the most important things right now. It was the voice referendum. It was the cost of living. That was the main issue right now.
Yeah. Also, the other thing I want to look at is, please, again, this is just an opinion piece, podcast, don't come at me. But the fact that he went to, religious places and did this and persuaded, please leave religious places out of it, out of state and politics, got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think that kind of alienated people as well, because it was like, the thing is about churches and mosques and temples is that they are communities in their own rights.
Mm.
And so people build friends in these places from
And prayers.
but they mainly it is a community, it's a social community, right? So for the Prime Minister to effectively infiltrate these communities and say what he needs to say and sell his agenda in these communities and convince these people to vote a particular way, means that if you feel that you don't agree with the Prime Minister or you don't agree with his politics, you could lose all your friends if you don't vote the right way. And I feel that was emotional blackmail, which, if you look at it, has been the entire theme of this entire campaign. If you don't basically vote, if you don't follow the Yes campaign, you must be a racist.
Yeah.
If you don't basically follow your fellow parishioners, you must be a racist. If you don't do exactly what we say, you must be a racist.
Exactly. Next question. What could be the fallout of Anthony Albanese's prime ministership? Now, this is a big one. I'm going to start this off. I think what could be the fallout is, part of me believes he will survive. He will survive this by the skin of his teeth. But I'm going to predict, if not this year, next year, that there will be a vote of no confidence being called by the Liberals and the Nationals. Not sure about the Teals or the Greens. But I predict a vote of no confidence. He's going to have to now tread very carefully what interviews he does, what he's going to say, how he tweets, his Facebook to TikTok. I think he needs to just shy away and work on the stuff that we need in Australia. I think he needs to be a bit more focused now on what's going on in our home ground rather than this whole thing. Eventually, it'll take a few days, I reckon, to a few weeks for it to calm down. But now he really has to get back to it. But if he gets re-elected, he'll be saved by the skin of his teeth. But I don't see him surviving much longer after that. Yeah. I really don't. I'm sorry, Leon.
I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to partially disagree with it. I don't think Anthony Albanese is in any danger of being rolled over the referendum at this point. However, this will be a wake-up call for Anthony Albanese, and he will be watching his back now, because this was his first big risk. He took the risk and has paid a heavy price for it, as we see with the numbers that are still coming in with this referendum. And we haven't even gotten to Western Australia yet. So it's a clean sweep of no's. It'll be across the board by the time this day is done, when the Western Australia numbers come in. He won't lose his prime ministership over this, but he'll be treading a very fine line from now until the next election. Like I said, he's in no danger of losing. At the moment, he's still the preferred prime minister. He actually gained a few points in the last news poll over Peter Dutton at this point, but he'll be treading the proverbial fine line. He'll be treading fine water, that's for sure.
The reason why I'm saying he'll survive, but not for long, because if the trend of the Labour Party works here and in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern was their prime minister then. She was a Labour, and then quietly in the thick of night, they had a vote of no confidence for her because of the whole COVID crisis. But the thing is, no one found out till the next morning that Chris Hipkins was the new prime minister. Now they've had another election where a national leader is going to become their next prime minister, Christopher Luxon. So she was rolled over like that. That's why I'm saying I don't see him surviving. This could be very quick.
Look, Australia is different. So Australia wants to. The thing is, politics is very, very big in Australia, probably bigger than most. We actually do care a lot. We're probably on par with the Americans, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And we want to know who our leader is. I don't know why they very quietly got rid of the New Zealand Prime Minister, but we would really like to know who our leaders are because they make decisions on our behalf. And to be honest, we want to know where our taxpayer dollars are going to because we pay a shitload of tax.
One thing I will say about this, like when the crap rolls downhill, it's going to go on the prime minister. And right now, the crap is rolling downhill in a big way. Right now, being the referendum, the voice referendum, the crap is going to roll downhill, and it's going to be on, and it's going to go on Anthony Albanese quickly. So he needs to find a way to turn this around, saying, "All right, I tried it, I messed up. Now let's." Actually focus on the real issues. Not that the voice is not a real issue. The voice is a real issue. In time, I think we'll have it, but not today.
I think the only thing saving Anthony Albanese, and this is a real risk for him, but it might actually save him, is more of the same, which is I'm going to emotionally blackmail you again by saying, well, I had the balls to basically invest $35 million into a quote-unquote suffering 4.5% of Australian minority, which happens to be the Aboriginal people. And people will feel guilty about that until they stop feeling guilty about that. And I think that might be the only thing that saves him to say, well, at least I tried to help a minority group, even though I failed helping this minority group. So I think that might be the only thing that quote unquote saves him. And I think if you were to be asked, if you were faced with an Aboriginal person and they asked, can I please have a glass of water or can I have some food? I think all of us would basically do our best to have them fed and at least get some a glass of water or something, right? You wouldn't let them starve in the middle of the desert. You'd probably make best efforts to make sure that they're alive, right? And I think he's going to use that guilt as a means to keep his seat. Because otherwise he's got no other reason why he used 35 million based off the Yes campaign, to be honest. So that might be a thing that will save him. But
I think all that money that was spent on the Yes campaign, quite frankly, should be ordered to give that back and put that back to where it's needed. And right now it is needed. And during for the cost of living crisis at the moment, that money should be put there right now.
I 100% agree with you.
I agree.
The biggest problem I had with that money being spent was that none of it went to Indigenous Australians that were suffering below the poverty line. That was my biggest issue with that. It was going to all these rich companies and everything like that said that they supported the voice to parliament, but it wasn't actually going towards the people that needed it the most. And that's the thing that upset me the most about that. Wouldn't it make more sense if you just kind of shifted it to those people, built hospitals, built schools, built all that? No, that's not what happened. It basically got given to the top 1% of Australian society, to people that aren't even Aboriginal. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Now here's my next question. Have we learnt more about Indigenous culture due to the great division between both the yes and the no campaigns?
You mind repeating that, please?
Sure. Have we learnt more about Indigenous culture due to the great division between both yes and no campaigns? Leon.
I
I
think we
think
have.
I think we have learned a lot. There was other ways we could have done this. I think everybody agrees there was other ways that we could have handled this particular um, this particular referendum. There was other ways we could have done it. Anthony Albanese chose to do it this way. We all felt. Well, I feel bad. I feel terrible. You know, for the people, our Indigenous friends out there, the fact that this election was called. Sorry, this is not election. Sorry, I apologize for that. This referendum was called 1 hour 20 minutes into the polling, and by that time, um, Northern Territory numbers weren't even being factored in, and neither was Western Australia's numbers. They weren't being factored in by the time that this referendum was called. That's why I'm disappointed with that, and I'm disappointed with Anthony Albanese, the way that he's handled this. I feel sorry for the Indigenous people who legitimately went for the yes, saying, you know, that this could be a good thing. However, the way that this was delivered was terrible, and it's now being shown up in this referendum as a gigantic waste of money.
You know what? I feel sorry for the Indigenous Australians that were basically effectively used as a promotional campaign to try and keep Anthony Albanese's seat.
Exactly.
And I thought that was extremely wrong. And the thing is, what I said to my friend ages ago, even before the thing started, the whole referendum started, is if they wanted to help Aboriginal people, they didn't have to have a referendum. They could have just written legislation to help Aboriginal people, and they already do anyway. They already give $22 billion to Aboriginal people anyway through the use of services and stuff like that.
Mm.
And they already have. I mean, they say that they don't have a quote unquote voice to Parliament, but they actually do. They actually have 11 ministers, which again I didn't know until this referendum started.
Don't they already have 50 plus voices to Parliament already? Something that I brought up at the start of the year, because I could have rolled down bloody department after department, had you guys not stopped me a while back, because I know it was going to get boring, and it was fair enough. But we've already got those voices to Parliament. Why were they ignored? So we could have this referendum, so we could just add another voice to it and say that we have the voice.
When I was in school, I remember when I was in primary school and we were learning about Aboriginal culture, we were taught that there are only 4 Aboriginal tribes, and they could only marry certain people from certain tribes, and that was like an ecosystem and whatever. And that's all we knew about Aboriginal tribes. The reality was, only because of this referendum, I learned that there are actually 300 tribes all over the country. And I didn't know that before. So,
I agree.
In fact, I didn't even know what Sydney was called until I watched the Matildas.
That's a goal, isn't it?
On
Disney.
On Disney, which was amazing. You know, and all the different names for the suburbs that actually exist. So I found it quite interesting that you know, I found it quite amazing that I did actually learn a lot about Indigenous culture and also Indigenous opinions about how they see the world, and even learning that not all Aboriginal cultures have the same culture or the same language. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I certainly learned a lot about Indigenous culture because of the referendum.
You know what thing I learned about tribes and all that sort of stuff, and cultures from cartoons, like specifically, and I can name one, and I'm sure you can name the same thing. Buckets is The Mysterious Cities of Gold, because not only is it a great cartoon to watch in the 80s, but there is also fascinating tribal cultural facts at the end of each episode, which that was the thing that caught my eye. It was one of my favorite cartoons from the 80s because it had that educational thing at the end as well.
Here's another question. Should all the celebrities apologize to the no voters that they have been abusing?
Well, definitely. All the celebrities, the celebrities that have been abusing the no campaigners, they should damn sure apologize. Ray Martin should be the first to stand up and apologize. When he called those no campaigners dinosaurs and dickheads, he doubled down on that on the current affairs show the day afterwards. So basically, he was standing firm, and also the other day when they had that special, he was still standing firm on that. He's just been shown that to be a total tool. Pardon my insults right there, but he's been shown out to be a total tool about it. He needs to apologize, and all the other celebrities that have been, resorting to name calling and stuff like that. Even Rove McManus, the other night on The Project, he should be apologizing as well. Every one of those celebrities that have been insulting the no campaigners, they should be apologizing. They should be apologizing to every single one of them, because that, quite frankly, that pissed us off.
I actually wonder if they actually got a political donation based
That's why I wanted an ICAC investigation into this, just to find out how much money people were getting paid by this crap.
Yeah. Because, look, John Farnham, he's not even Aboriginal. He's English.
But the song The Voice would be the song The Voice was the perfect song choice for the campaign. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But he just came back from having throat cancer, and everyone felt bad for him unfortunately he's going to lose some proverbial skin over the pardon the language, pardon the pun here. He's going to lose some proverbial skin over this, now radio stations across Australia are now going to be playing Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time, because that is just a take on what on one of the songs that John Farnham has sung. By the way, we're doing this live. Anthony Albanese is addressing the nation, by the way.
Well, can I say something about John Farnham, right? So the lyrics actually went, and Sky News picked this up, which was, "Build a voice, don't you understand it?" But the answer to that question is no, we don't understand it, because that's why we're voting no, because we don't fully understand the what's going to happen if this thing gets passed. So I would even argue that works for both sides. Anyway.
For me, Ray Martin was a highly respected journalist.
And I'm glad you said was until the other night, until last week.
Past tense. And I voted no. We voted no. You voted no. But now, who he is has made me feel angry on the inside. I mean, if I ever shook his hand or met him, I would like to sit down with him and say, I think you owe all of us a deep apology, whether it's verbal or written, or you need to stand down. He lost his journalistic merits that day he uttered those horrid words, because he was respected. He was a journalist. What has he been doing since? He's now come out of retirement to utter those words. Even on a current affair, the lady asked him, will you apologize? And as you said, he doubled down. I said, no, why should I? Because celebrities, as respected and revered that they are by the public, adored by the public, should have no interference with a public issue.
Yeah, and I felt that when Linda Burney basically refused to have a discussion with
Jacinta Price,
and decided to send Ray Martin instead on her behalf, I thought that was the nail in the coffin for the Yes campaign.
I'll go one step better. With that same incident, the Ray Martin incident, was when he called the no campaigners dinosaurs and dickheads. Anthony Albanese was at that event, and he did not pull Ray Martin in the line. Did not tell him to apologize. He should have told him to apologize. That would have saved him some embarrassment. He would have been embarrassed, Anthony Albanese, but he would have at least gotten at least some moral high ground back that he's done it. Ray Martin has done the wrong thing here, and he should apologize, and he didn't, and he still hasn't apologized to this day.
The thing is, if I was a politician, because lots of politicians, both on the left and the right, have said really offensive things, but afterwards they've said, I am sorry, I shouldn't have said that. No offense to ABC. And Tony Abbott's done it, John Howard's done it, Paul Keating's done it, many other politicians
Scott Morrison's done it.
Scott Morrison's done it. Many other politicians have apologized for their behavior. Ray Martin just outright refused. And this is why he shouldn't have been a representative of the Yes campaign, because he's effectively damaged their reputation. Like it wasn't already damaged enough.
Yeah.
It's really damaged now.
Yeah. The second to last question I have, and this has been and this is alleged, and I quote, alleged, that rumor has it Peter Dutton is looking to do another referendum. So my question is, will Mr. Dutton create another referendum?
I would hope not. Sorry to interrupt. I hope not, because how much money was spent on this right now? We do have a cost of living crisis at the moment. If I was all those politicians, I would be worried about the top issue right now, which is the cost of living. Anthony Albanese focused on the 17th most talked about issue at the moment, the voice referendum. He was looking at the 17th most issue right now. He should have been looking at the first. Peter Dutton should be focused on the first. We'll worry about a referendum of his own later. And I have heard that, by the way. You are right. He did toss up the idea of having a referendum himself should he win at the next election. After what's happened here, I would avoid it like the plague right now, because this result is too raw right now. This result is just a trashing of the Yes campaign. The Yes campaign were absolutely trashed. The No campaign got up, whooped pretty much all states right now, as Western Australia has just closed, by the way. I would avoid a referendum right now. I would avoid a referendum for several years now because of what's happened here today. I would focus on the cost of living right now.
May I suggest something? So if the cost of living and every other problem that Australia needs to deal with is addressed, Dutton did have a really good point, and that's keep the voice at a local level. Now, even though I voted no, I kind of agree with Dutton, and I'm saying this as a Labor voter, mind you. I kind of agree with Dutton, because Dutton's idea was, instead of having it on a federal level, and instead of messing up the Constitution, his idea was, look, let's just have it at a local level. Therefore, you can help more Indigenous Australians locally, and it won't get corrupted all the way at the top, because what the Yes campaign wanted was, or rather what yes, we'll call it the Yes campaign. What the Yes campaign really wanted, or the Uluru Statement of the Heart wanted, was a body that couldn't be dissolved. But if it's local, okay, that means people can be elected. It means that money can be actually given to the local council, and it can actually be distributed better, and people will know exactly what that money's been spent on. And you'll have a better means test of where it's going to, who's it going to, the type of people it's going to. And all in all, it would actually balance out any Indigenous problems that might actually be happening. Whereas if it's on the top from the federal level, it's only going to help 24 representatives out of 300. And there's no way that the other 300 tribes would even agree to that, because they would feel they would be represented by people that are in their tribe. So that it has a better, I think Dutton's idea has a better chance of success if it stays at a local level from a community perspective, not at a federal level. At federal level, it can be corrupted very easily.
Last question, and then I believe this will happen. I don't know if it's this year, but my last question is, will they call a vote of no confidence for our Prime Minister, Mr. Anthony Albanese?
It's hard to say right now. I think that, as you said, that he is hanging on by the skin of his teeth. It will be an issue that he spent $35 million when everyone is suffering with the cost of living and housing and rent on top of that, and basic shopping and stuff like that. You know, that will be a problem that people will question. But then Albanese has done good things, like, for example, provided free education through TAFE and done other good policies as well. So I mean, I don't know how he's going to talk himself out of this one, to be honest, and it will be a reason to maybe vote him out, or at least bring up the idea of voting him out. But he will be on shaky ground, I guarantee.
Leon?
I don't believe there'll be a vote of no confidence against Anthony Albanese. Even though this is a major setback for him, I don't believe there'll be a vote of no confidence. He'll make it through to the federal election, but the question is, how badly will Anthony Albanese get burned because of this voice referendum?
See, what I see is, as you're both right, he has had some great policies, but this is going to hurt him for a while. It's going to sting, and it's going to burn for a while. But the problem is that even if he survives a second term and gets voted back in as our Prime Minister, I predict it won't be long until there's another argument in Parliament between him and Dutton calling for a vote of no confidence and going behind his back and trying to speak to the Labour Party to have a bipartisan where they all vote him out. That it has happened before.
But less than that. I
But
mean,
less than that. We're talking Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard. You know, we've had that happen in
happened to Tony Abbott.
Abbott.
Nothing.
Yeah, and we've had this happen in our history. What's to say it doesn't get repeated again?
Yeah, and
last thing we want to do is be called a political laughingstock, and that's what happened with the Rudd years, when those guys were just knifing each other for the hell of it. We were called a political laughingstock to the world. The last thing we need is that happening again.
Well, what's to say that
it won't happen again?
That it won't happen again in the future? Like, we don't know if he's going to get reelected. I mean, this is a scary time for him. Don't forget, he's just had to concede. This man's had to come out and speak to the public. He's nervous as hell, probably shaking. He's probably written his speech over 100 times, rehearsed it 100 times. Seems confident, but he's scared and frightened of facing the public now. What's to say? You know, you're both right. The public we have all turned on him, and this is not something he wants. This is not the outcome he had hoped for.
Can I say something, right? If the Liberal Party were to use anything to take down Anthony Albanese, this would be it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they're going to use this as their absolute field trip to take him out.
See this is a noose. You better start listening, Anthony Albanese, or that grip will get tightened around you and you'll get rolled. So you got to be careful, Anthony Albanese.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I'm going to agree to disagree with you on the issue of it won't happen. It'll be a laughingstock. I'm not saying it's going to happen now, but like Buckets has said, and like you have said, you know, this is Peter Dutton and the Liberal and the Nationals and the other parties who will come forward. This is their time now to roll him out as Prime Minister. This is going to be their tactic. That's what I'm saying. I predict a vote of no confidence. And even if he survives, into his prime ministership. What's to say that, what's to say, Peter doesn't start campaigning for his role, even though he's not that strong, he's not very popular. But what's to say that there won't be heads rolling in Parliament in Canberra?
And I'd just like to point out that there are plenty of Indigenous elders that did warn Anthony Albanese that if he was to take this path, that they would not support it.
Yeah.
And yet they wrote lots of letters and lots of letters and lots of letters. And he just would not listen. And because he refused to listen, he's lost. And again, the Liberal Party are going to remind him of that, and remind the Australian people of that.
He will never
definitely they'll remind the Australian people about that. Definitely. I think what he needs to do right now is he's going to have to tackle the big. Anthony Albanese is going to have to come right back out of the blocks and start tackling the big issues right away in order to save his neck.
Yeah, he's going to have to now find a way. He's going to have to now, when he puts his head down on that pillow tonight, he's not going to be in a happy mood. He's going to be very sour and very bitter and very angry. He needs time. He needs time to grieve.
He brought this on himself.
Yeah, I agree.
I wonder if he'll have to appease to the Greens housing bill, which allows for renters to have their rents raised.
Hey, man. Anybody will have Anthony Albanese over a barrel now. You're right.
Yeah. So the Greens are just going to go, well, if you want to be saved, mate, you have to agree to us, or you're stuck.
Yeah. Exactly. Now's the time and he brought this on to himself. But don't forget, he was confident. He was adamant that he will close the gap and unite the country. That this was the only solution left to bring us together and to move forward. Now he's not achieved that. This is a big failure on his part. And when he goes to bed tonight, he's not going to be thinking about anything else but why did this happen? How did this happen? Why
he's going to be angry.
He's going to be angry. And he's going to be
more angry at himself. He needs to be angry at the person he looks at in the mirror.
Yeah. What's to say when he has his next national cabinet meeting that he's not going to be fuming?
Like everybody in the Labor Party should be fuming. They should be fuming at Anthony Albanese for leading us down this primrose path, and it made him look like a total dope.
We do have other agendas like rental caps, rent freeze, homelessness. We need to tackle all these issues. We need to tackle education, paying the teachers, getting more schools out there. But there's other things in the world like the war overseas. We need to tackle what's in our home ground and overseas as well.
Yeah, but I just think how many schools and how many hospitals could have built in the Alps with that $35 million?
Exactly. And paid for more doctors and registered nurses
and training
and jobs. People like myself who work in retail. I'm looking for another job. This is not easy. This is going to go down in history. Schools are going to teach this. He's just like Donald Trump. He's going to be spoken about in schools for years to come. This disaster is going to be brought to unis. Professors are going to be talking about this. Teachers are going to be talking about this.
So this won't be easily forgotten.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, is there any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Pockets and Leon, for joining me tonight. Thank you, Australia and the world, for joining. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and like and comment and share it. Invite your friends. Let us know in the comments below what you thought. And once again, I don't know what to say. This shouldn't have happened, but it happened, and this is how Australia has decided. It has been Australia post-referendum reactions, analysis, Q&As. Thank you for joining us. Until then, peace, good night, blessings to you all. Stay safe. Bye.